Mr. Calderon, are we ready? Yes? Okay. I want to call the meeting to order of the Financial Oversight and Audit Committee at 2 p.m. We have Member Chavez present, Member Maldonado Rocha, Member Acevedo, and Member Nino present, and we could get started with the Pledge of Allegiance if you would like to lead us. Member Maldonado Rocha. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we could get started with the first item on the agenda, approval of minutes for Financial Oversight and Audit Committee meeting of February 12th, 2025. Is there a motion to accept?
Oh, sorry. Motion. Second. Motion to accept.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A motion passes unanimously. Item number 3, discussion and action on, item number 2, discussion and action on the 2025 Financial Oversight and Audit Committee meeting calendar. I have come up with dates. The backup on this shows the dates for the rest of the year. I think this is moving the right direction. This gives us clarity on when we will be having meetings, and we're not trying to figure out everybody's calendars. For the most part, they are occurring on the second Thursday, except when things got a little weird with the calendar. We were trying to put them on off-council weeks in order to not have all the meetings in one week, and then they'll be at Thursdays at 2 p.m. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. Rep. Chavez?
Yes. No, I think it's great that we're going to be meeting once a month. I just also would like for our meetings to be mindful of time since they're going to be later in the afternoon, just for everybody's time sake.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that since we will be having the monthly meetings, if we are seeing that we're going a little longer than 90 minutes or so, then we can easily postpone items to the next month. Okay.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. No one, so it passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 3, discussion and action on external audit results for fiscal year 2024. Ms. Marin, Ms. Mack?
Ms. Maureen will introduce our external auditors.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, everybody, members of the board. Margarita Marin, I'm introducing Rachel Ormsby. She is our external auditor, and she'll be doing the presentation today.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, committee. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here this afternoon. Let me go ahead and get this presentation up. All right, there we go. Technology. All right, I'm Rachel Ormsby. I am your external audit partner, and I also have the privilege of serving as our market industry leader for North Texas as well as West Texas. So again, very happy to be here. Okay, so this is just a little bit about our firm. We are new to the city. We just completed our first year on the external audit contract. So this is just a little bit about our firm. Forvis Mazars is a new name in the marketplace, but we're not new to the state of Texas. In fact, we were previously BKD and had the great fortune of working with you all many years ago. And then in June of 22, we became Forvis, and then in June of 2024, we became Forvis Mazars. I always tell people this just what it means for you all is it expanded our breadth of resources so that if I don't know the answer to a technical question, I have a national office that I can tap into. But it's still Rachel. It's still me and my team here in Texas serving you all. And then this is, again, just a little bit about our firm. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is our commitment to unmatched client experiences. And I hope that the team and OTC can attest that we are committed to that and strive very, very hard to deliver unmatched client experiences as well as commend and deliver on our timelines. Okay. the agenda, while we're here today, we're going to talk about the external audit scope and the results of the audit. And then it's not an accounting and auditing presentation if we don't talk about the future of where GASB's headed, who's the Governmental Accounting Standards Board that you all have to follow as a governmental entity. Okay, so there's a lot of things on your screen. We were engaged to complete several reports for the city, so I'll just quickly go over those. The annual comprehensive financial report, that is the thick 200+ page book that the Office of the Comptroller worked extremely hard to produce. So I'll tell you, clients all over Texas do not always prepare their reports in-house. Your staff do. So they've worked over the last 6 months tirelessly to get this report completed and prepared in a timely manner. We also did complete the separate single audit in accordance with the uniform guidance and the Texas Grant Management Standards. I think there's maybe a few new faces, so let me quickly kind of catch you up there on when a government spends more than $750,000 in federal and or state awards, you're required to have a separate compliance audit. So that's what that is. We also completed the passenger facility charge audit at the airport. And then there were 3 other agreed upon procedures that we were engaged to complete by the city related to TCEQ requirements, Chapter 59 asset forfeiture requirements, as well as the National Transit Database. All of these in front of you have been completed as of today. One of these was due in October, and it was completed and submitted by the required deadline, and the rest of these were completed at the end of February, all in accordance with the requirements. Okay, the fun part. So I'm pleased to let you all know that the city did receive clean, unmodified opinions. So we did issue many opinions for you all, one on the financial statements as a whole, as well as internal control over financial reporting, as well as internal control over compliance and compliance with those federal and state awards. Clean, unmodified opinion is the highest level form of assurance. Now, again, we provide reasonable assurance, not absolute, correct? But this is a very, very, I guess on a report card, an A, right? So clean, unmodified opinions. Okay, in terms of the federal and state award programs, we did complete 5 that were required. So it was the Women, Infants, and Children's program, of course, the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, and then there were 3 state of Texas grants that we also completed the compliance audits for. Again, pleased to let you know that we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control over financial reporting or internal control over compliance as part of our audit. Achievements. So I thought this was really, really important to note. So the city of El Paso has received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, and I put this in bold and tried to exclamation point, but for 26 consecutive years. So I do a lot of these presentations across the state, and this is one of the longest standing consecutive years that I have seen. So this is just a kudos and a true testament to the Office of the Comptroller for, really owning and embracing their craft, which is financial reporting and excellence and committing to that. Also at the very bottom, I did some research. Somebody can fact check me on this, but the city is one of 27 cities across the state of Texas to receive the GFOA Triple Crown Award. So that means that you have received this award not only for your ACFR, but your Poplar Annual Financial Report, as well as your Budget Award. So again, when thinking about commitment to financial reporting and excellence, this is just a testament to that. Okay, and then as part of our audit, we set materiality, right? So every accounting firm has their own audit methodology and their own way of setting benchmarks in materiality. Of course, as I mentioned, it's not 100% assurance. We do sampling and things of that nature, as well as we have materiality. Pleased to let you know that as part of our audit, we did not identify any audit adjustments that were required and necessary to be recorded in the financial statements. So what that means for you all is that when you're getting interim financial reports, you can rely on the completeness and accuracy of that, as this test at the end of the audit showed that we didn't have significant audit adjustments. We did have one audit adjustment that was recommended but passed and proposed on. And so what that means is, again, every firm does set materiality and set thresholds. And so this particular item on the screen was actually brought to us during final audit fieldwork. So management identified this item and brought it to our attention to say, hey, what is the best way to go about, correcting this item? So we worked together as a team, and at 8/31/24, this item was fully corrected, and so it didn't require a restatement or a recall of previously issued financial statements. So again, it's something that wasn't material, and we passed on it as part of the audit. It's just a requirement that I have to communicate. Okay, every set of financial statements does contain significant estimates. These are the ones that we believe are material and accurate to the city, and then we do a lot of our audit procedures surrounding these areas. And then kind of along those same lines, every set of financial statements does contain disclosures. And then, of course, these are some that we believe are material, right? Your pension liabilities, your OPEBs, leases, subscription-based IT arrangements. So this is just more for your information there. Okay, any questions so far before I talk about the future? So that was kind of where we were at 8/31/24. Happy to answer any questions before we talk about where GASB's headed. Okay. All right, so as I mentioned, GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, that is who you follow and the accounting standards that you have to align with and implement. As of 8/31/24, the city is fully in compliance with all GASB pronouncements that had been issued to that point. There are a couple accounting standards coming down the pipeline. I'll quickly go over these. GASB 101 is compensated absences. This standard is required to be implemented in this fiscal year that you're in. We'll work closely with OTC staff. I personally don't believe that this is going to have a material impact on the city. The city is already accounting for compensated absences. That liability, that accrual is already in your financials. So if anything, it would just be kind of clarifying and maybe truing up in accordance with the standards on what needs to be there. But again, I don't see this having a material impact to the city's financial statements. GASB 102, this is a disclosure regarding certain risks. Again, this one is required for the fiscal year that we are in, but I don't see this having a material impact. But of course, OTC is evaluating and will kind of work with us to determine before the fiscal year is over where this will shake out. GASB 103, this is, there's been a lot of discussion around this standard when it comes to the financial reporting model. GASB did go out and receive a lot of feedback and comments on this standard. We do have another year or so. This is applicable for fiscal year 26, and we'll work closely with the staff to kind of make sure that this one is implemented. And then last but not least, there are some, and this one, GASB 104, is just some disclosure of certain capital assets. Again, the city is already accounting for this. They already separate their capital assets from leased assets, from subscription assets. So I don't see this having a significant impact to the city's financial statements either. Okay, so that is my presentation. Before I leave and step away from the podium, I do just want to commend the staff. As I mentioned, it's our first year here conducting the audit. There is a lot going on from a regulatory standpoint, a lot of change, and I want to commend the staff. You know, it has been 6 months of a lot of hard work to meet these deadlines. Everybody makes it look very easy. Here's the book and here's the final published report, but it is a lot of hard work to get here. And so I greatly appreciate their commitment to honoring our timeline. You know, it works when both parties meet their milestones along the way to be able to get here and get these financial statements delivered so that they can go to all the third parties that they're required to go to in a timely manner. So I appreciate all the hard work. I appreciate every staff member that was a part of helping us be successful. And again, happy to answer any final questions that anybody has at this point.
Any questions from the committee?
No, just a comment. Thank you. Yeah. It's so important to have that external view balances just to confirm what's happening or what's not happening. So I know it's a very tedious work, and so I appreciate everything that you and your firm did.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Just out of curiosity, how many people worked on this?
A lot. So we started, to I guess kind of to shed some light on the process. So we were engaged, contract signed August, September, I lose time. But we started in September, early October. I had a team of 4 to 5 people on site. We started in October. We worked for several weeks on the grant compliance piece. And then in December, we came back and had the financial statements and the draft of the act were completed. So here on site, at any point, there was 4 to 5 people. And then, of course, we have quality control reviewers and things like that also work on the audit but are independent. So they're not seen, right? They're separate, they're independent, quality control. So from August to February, at any point, 7 to 8 people on the audit.
Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Committee Member Nino?
Yeah, thank you so much for all the work as well, and to Ms. Mack and Ms. Marin, great job on achieving the 26 years of the Certificate of Achievements of Excellence in the Financial Reporting. Looking forward to future conversations and continuing the great work that our Office of the Comptroller continues to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I was kind of saving my questions for the end, so
Okay.
bear with me.
Perfect.
I understand what you said about anything in federal funding over $750,000 needs to be part of the scope of the audit. Is that correct?
No.
Or it needs to be audited?
Yeah, so the requirement, and it's actually changing to $1 million as of
Okay.
October 1st, I forget what year we're in, 24. So that requirement is for a governmental entity, or potentially a nonprofit organization. If they spend, just in totality, more than $750,000, they are required to have that separate single audit in accordance with uniform guidance, as well as same thing, Texas grant management standards for the state piece. So it's not every individual grant over $750 that's required to be audited. It's just in totality. And then we go through a risk assessment to determine which major programs are going to be subject to audit in each given year.
And you get feedback from who to kind of come up with the scope of the audit?
For the
The overall scope, is it just based on those contracts that are over 750, or is there other stuff that can be added to the scope based on conversations that you might have with city staff? Or I'm trying to understand who's giving you feedback on that too.
It's not really a feedback process, so it's a risk assessment. So what has to happen is we look at, over the last 2 previous years, which grants had been audited. And if they're over our type A threshold, which is typically for you all close to $3 million, just by that total number, it's required to be analyzed. And then we go through and we say, okay, has this been audited in the last 2 years? If it has and there's been no findings, there's no reason for us to audit that again.
Okay.
Now, if it's a new grant that's not been audited before, which some of those were on the screen, we are required to audit those because they're over our type A threshold, if you will.
Okay.
Does that help answer?
Yeah,
So it's
it
really
does.
kind of looking at what's been done the last 2 years. Have there been direct findings that make those grants high risk? Or, did the federal government push down a new program like ARPA a few years ago, where that's automatically a high-risk program, and we are required to audit that.
And right before I get you, Mr.
You
Cortin.
meet with them prior to the audit. You want to talk about that, or do you want me to talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And meeting with the department heads and
Well, city manager, myself.
Yes.
Meet with the members of council as well. To
Yes.
any issues or concerns that you have.
yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Let me step back. So as part of the overall, before we even start the audit,
Yeah.
we do have kickoff meetings with all key members of management. So I had meetings with the city manager, the assistant city manager. I met with city attorney. I've had meetings all across the city before we even got started to just kind of say, hey, kind of, is there issues, are there concerns? And we kind of talk through that. But then in terms of identifying the grants that we're required to audit, that's really looking at what's been done and is it required by our standards to have to be audited. Does that help?
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of similar to the audit standards of just kind of collecting some feedback and then saying, I'm getting these concerns. Let me see if it fits in the audit or not. Maybe that's not something that we're going to audit because we could audit everything, but we're not going to get the right results that we want, right?
Correct.
And so it's just more focusing. So I think as you're going to do this in the following year, it seems like you're going to start in August because you got the contract for a few years, right? And this is your
Yes.
first year with it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you're going to start in August, I would really like to have this body
Yes.
involved in giving you some of that feedback.
Okay.
So we could give you concerns that we might be hearing from community members or just seeing stuff, structures in the city as you're starting to do that before you get to your risk assessment.
Yes, and I did meet, I'm sorry, and thank you, Robert, for the reminder. I did meet with the previous chair of the FOAC as part of that discussion back in September, August.
Yeah.
So I do have those kickoff meetings before we even start any work. But then, we have to follow our risk assessment.
Absolutely.
So I was just trying to help you understand how I audited those grants.
No, absolutely, and that makes sense. And I think it was good that you met with the FOAC chair, but as this FOAC is new,
Yes.
I think what I would really appreciate is if you could meet with all of us individually, so we're all on the same page, because I think we're really pushing for transparency and doing things a little different than what we were doing before. Absolutely. And so I think that would be really helpful.
Absolutely.
And just to go back to what you were saying before, you had said we're not going to go and audit something that was audited 2 years ago and they had no results, because at that point it's low risk and it would be better served to use your time to look at other things. Is that a correct statement?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay.
So we follow a risk assessment, and so we're required to look at anything over a certain dollar threshold. So that's kind of the starting point. It's kind of a type A, type B, high risk, low risk evaluation. So we start with that dollar threshold because typically magnitude could, have a driver there. And then we look at, I'm just going to pick a grant, X grant. If that grant was audited 2 years ago or last year and there were no findings, we would go to the next one. And we kind of go down that track. We're also required by the standards to get a certain amount of coverage. So not only are we looking at things over a certain threshold, we are required to audit 20% of your CFA. And so there's a lot of factors in the risk assessment that go into that. And so, of course, if there was a concern or a granting agency came in and there were findings, we would, look at that.
And Ms. Marini?
Explain how you have to follow the guidance and everything through you have an audit program that you have to follow. I think that's what they're looking
Yeah, we have an audit program that we follow. OMB, they issue a compliance supplement every year, and that is what we follow. And so within the OMB uniform guidance, there is, steps that we have to follow to do our risk assessment.
Okay. And I guess I'm assuming the audit report is the single audit report FY24, and that was sent to us at the end of February by Ms. Marin. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. I would appreciate that we could have included this in the backup for this item. So we had the audit next to the presentation and it's not there. So just for the future, I wanted to let you know, Ms. Mack, if we could do that. And then where will this document be found for the public to access?
The next step is for this to go to full council.
Okay.
And we'll make sure that it's in the backup.
Okay, perfect.
And then it's on your website.
Then it's posted on the website. Okay, perfect.
It's already there, right?
The last thing that I had
It's
for you.
already on the website.
Okay, perfect. The last thing I had for you is I wanted to get a better understanding of what happened when you were looking at the airport funds and anything that, I know there was a clean bill all across, but if you could explain that a little bit more, the funding that was used, anything that you have there, because we just had some recent stuff happen and I want to get your perspective on it.
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there was a project at the airport that required a $250,000 change order.
Okay.
And that change order was brought to us last council meeting,
Okay.
but was deleted because it was not presented in the right manner.
Okay.
It was the work was already completed.
Okay.
since November, and then they were coming to us after the fact. So I just wanted to see if you identified anything during your time auditing that specific area.
No, nothing like that came to our attention again, and I don't know the specific time period. So we were focused on matters that existed at 8/31/24. So I don't know, when that particular. And again, we have certain materiality thresholds. I don't have those off the top of my head memorized, but nothing like that came to our attention.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your work.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 4, discussion on FY 2024-2025 audit plan second quarter update. Mr. Calderon, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, members of the FOAC. Edmundo Calderon, Chief Internal Auditor for the record. What I have here is the second quarter update in its new format. So, feedback is welcome. This is the second quarter update, and the second quarter ran from
Mr. Calderon, I'm sorry. I just realized that we were posted for action on item number 3.
Oh, okay.
So it's an oversight of mine. So we need to accept this, right, Ms. Neiman? Okay. Is there a motion to accept number 3? Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, now we could go back to number 4, discussion on the FY 2024-2025 audit plan second quarter update. I'm so sorry about that, Mr. Calderon.
That's okay. This second quarter update, second quarter ran from December 1st, 2024 to February 28th, 2025. A couple of housekeeping things. I wanted to go over the reporting statement, how I'm required to complete periodic reporting or submit periodic reports to the FOAC, which this will satisfy that requirement. Also wanted to mention our global standard 7.7, where I maintain my independence by reporting to the FOAC legislatively, and then of course to the chairman as operationally. So that takes care of that. Going over our training hours for the quarter. Wanted to let everybody or the FOAC know that CP recording runs from January 1st to December 31st, so that's why you'll see it in this format. So this is from the months of January and February, so that's 2 months worth of training there, okay? And we're required to get 40 hours a year. Okay, here's an overview of our fiscal year 2024-25 audit plan. We've already completed 12 audits out of 35 that have been scheduled, and then we have 23 in various statuses and planning and in progress. Here's the same information in a pie chart. This report, or this slide here, is you can kind of look at it as our status report. It gives us a status report of audits that we've completed this so far this year, or for this quarter, I'm sorry. And we have 2 we completed, which we're going to talk about shortly. And then you can see the other ones that are currently in progress. And then we have one that we're starting a franchise fee audit of El Paso Water Utilities. We haven't started that. It's still an idea in my head, okay? And then a little update on our hotline for the quarter. From December to February, we received 8 calls. 1 call still remains open. And I met with every member of the FOAC committee already and kind of showed them how the hotline is set up, Rep. Acevedo. So all that is accomplished already. Okay. Tax office refunds reviews, you'll see those in the agenda almost every week or every other week when you meet. But for the quarter, we completed 25 tax office reviews from the tax office, okay? Client surveys, we surveyed 2 departments that we completed work on. One was Sun Metro, and the other one was the Department of Health. We did pretty good on the responses, and of course the content of the responses were really good. My auditors got some really good grades on those. And you can see the actual surveys on the backup that we posted. Okay, that's any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Are there any questions from the FOAC? Rep. Chavez?
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Calderon, thank you so much for putting your presentations together. I really appreciate it.
Did you like it?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Question real quick under page 7. Remind me again, the Ps and the As. As is for audit. You have a P or an A before the code number? And the A is for,
The A is for audit.
the A is for audit?
The A
and-
is for audit,
and
and
the
the
P
P
is-
would be what we qualify a project, which is an advisory engagement we've taken on.
Okay. Is a project like a partial audit or not?
It's like an informal audit. That's probably a better
Okay.
definition. We're providing more advisory services than assurance services, and those are audit definitions. But it's semi.
And we just heard from the previous speaker that they do like a risk assessment. Do you go through something similar to determine whether it's going to be a project or an audit?
Yes, ma'am. We do
Okay.
2 levels of risk assessment. When I do the annual audit plan, I do a citywide risk assessment on all risks that are identified during my research. And then when we do the individual audit, and even some of these projects, we do a detailed risk assessment specific to this area.
So is through that risk assessment how you determine whether something's going to be a project or an audit?
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay.
then when we get to the audit project, we do another risk assessment, and we actually look at the risk associated with the department.
Just out of curiosity, do any projects turn into audits from your findings?
They could, at the termination of the engagement, I could get direction to do a more in-depth study. That has happened before in my history here. And yes, we can do it. I can answer your question, yes.
So could you give me an example of one or not today? It's okay if you can't. I don't want to put you on the
Okay,
spot
I
like
can't
that.
remember right now.
Okay, but it's happened before?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, ma'am.
It's happened before?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right.
Definitely.
We can get more into the details of
Well, I can, you know
of
what,
that
I do
risk
have one.
assessment.
Well, I do have one. The vehicle allowance analysis that we did, well, we're gonna talk about it shortly. And because of the results of that analysis that we did, I was requested by the previous FOAC chair to conduct an in-depth audit, which
An
we're
in-depth audit.
on the tail end of finishing it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Calderon, for the presentation.
Okay, let me get the other one.
And just, I had a few things really quick. Just based on what Representative Chavez is saying about the P and the A, I think what would be really helpful for perhaps the next FOAC meeting, just to kind of do a small presentation, 2-3 slides on kind of like a legend or a key of what the P is on the A is, the reasons why a project might turn into a full-blown audit, right? Maybe you're doing the project and you find something in gathering your data and any information that you kind of say, well, maybe now we could go in that full-blown audit, just so we have a better understanding of the thought process that goes behind it, and kind of pairing that with the risk assessment.
Yes, sir.
Especially because we're about to start planning the audit for the next fiscal year. So I think having some of this information would be great, and we could do it in the next audit committee.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll put a couple of slides together. I'll take off the
Okay.
the
And
first two, and I'll replace them.
okay, and this item has no action on it. It was just an update. So we could move forward to number 5 on the agenda, discussion and action on the results of the Department of Public Health Internal Control Review P 2024-03.
Okay, IT's calling it up here. Okay. This engagement was completed on December 3rd, 2024, and it was an internal control review over at the Department of Public Health. Keep wanting to scroll. It's better if I hit the down button. The objectives for this audit was to conduct audit work related to the internal controls over cash handling. Determine if cash handling procedures are consistent with city policies. Okay. Determine if the Department of Public Health is operating in a control conscious environment. And 4, the review should include sufficient tests over internal controls to make sure they're adequate. And number 5, document areas for inefficiencies may exist and internal controls are strengthened. Okay. The time frame for this engagement was fiscal year 23 through 24, so it was the previous fiscal year. Go over my notes here. Okay. We had first observation when we completed this engagement. We reviewed the daily deposit instruction manuals there at the Department of Public Health. And these were basically specific to their clinics, to the clinics that the Department of Public Health operates. We found the manual is specific to the Department of Public Health clinics' cash management operations. These policies were recently updated in June of 2023, which was very good. No internal control weaknesses were identified. The deposit documentation for our review period, which was June 24th through the 28th of 2024, was complete and accurate. So no exceptions there. We determined that financial, physical, and information assets are properly safeguarded. Okay, our conclusion, we confirmed that the cash handling procedures are consistent with the city policies. We also confirmed that revenues are properly and accurately collected, reported, and deposited. Okay, determined that the Department of Public Health is operating in a control-conscious environment that we're looking for, and it was a very good audit on this one. Here are their responses, and I'll just paraphrase what they submitted. The Department of Public Health was very pleased with the results. They were very happy with it. There was a very thorough review, and there was no exceptions. It was a very strong cashiering function there. So with that, any questions?
Any questions, discussion? Representative Maldonado Rocha?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Calderon, again for this response and in regards to this audit. I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that you have a schedule of audits, but in this particular audit, was there anything that led to the reason that it would be put into the scope of an audit?
No, I think
It's just part of the schedule?
This is the termination of this review.
So even the change in the process back in 23, would that normally trigger an audit?
Yes, ma'am, if we had found something wrong, but we found nothing.
That was
We
just a
found
question.
everything a very strong system.
I was just trying to understand if the change that happened back in 23 automatically triggers an audit just to make sure that it's in compliance.
Well,
That's
because of the
just from
change
my
in 2023, that's the reason why we went
Okay.
in.
Okay, that was my question. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
because
you.
we do when we do the risk assessment, we look at the departments we've audited and not audited during the last 5 years.
Right.
And we hadn't been to the Department of Public Health in a while.
Okay, thank
So we
you.
decided to pay them a visit.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Any other questions from the FOAC? No? Okay. I did have a little bit of feedback here, and I'm kind of noticing this throughout some of the audits that you have conducted, not necessarily the presentations, just the reports themselves. I really want to have a better understanding of the scope, because I think for the most part what I've noticed is that the scope is just kind of the time frame that you're looking at.
Yes, sir.
And broader narrative on that would be really helpful to understand what resources you're using, what processes are in place, any specific areas that you're doing along with the time period, because I think that makes me understand more on how this is relevant and how this is going to be focused, rather than just knowing the time period. I need more there in that narrative.
Yes, sir. You will find that information actually in the reports where you see the resources that we use, the criteria we use, the methodology that we use. I think that's what you're more interested in. It sounds like to me that you're interested in the methodology that we use.
Well, it's more like this is kind of almost like I see the scope as an abstract for the entire report. This is what we're setting out to audit. Here are the resources that we're going to use. This is how we're going to focus it. We're going to make it relevant throughout. And then what you're saying is the methodology is important. That's part of the plan, right? But I think more structure to the reports make it an easier read in that sense, because sometimes the first thing that I want to know is what is the scope, and then I go to the scope and then I just see it's going to be this time period. But
I think-
it's not really identifying, here are the resources that we're using, here are the processes that we're using. It's not a long thing. It's like an abstract is usually a paragraph long, 5 to 8 sentences or something like that. And I think that would strengthen the thoughts on what the audit is going to be about.
It sounds like you're talking more about the objectives that
No.
we're doing. You're more interested in that.
No. The objectives are different. The objectives are very specific things that you're going to do in the audit. I'm gonna, like you said right here, we're gonna go look at the cash handling. We're gonna look at internal controls. Like we're gonna meet these objectives, and then we're gonna give you results. The scope is giving me almost like a synopsis of what is to come for the entire audit and why you chose to go in that direction. Right now, the only thing I see is we're just doing fiscal year 24, 25, or whatever it says right here, right? Or 23, 24, I'm sorry. I need a little bit more there. And I could work with you offline with it.
Let's have a conversation with
Yeah.
that, because I'm not 100% clear on what you're
Yeah.
asking for.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. So is there a motion on this? And just before we get a motion, council or committee, this is going to move forward to the city council meeting, likely the April 1st meeting. And this is kind of the standard that we're going to set moving forward. And so it'll be its own separate item. And then once council accepts it, then it becomes official. And anything in a management response will become official in its direction to Ms. Mack to implement with her team. Yes, go ahead, Ms.
Okay.
Chavez.
Thank you. Mundo, so not specific to this audit, but yes, specific to this audit. It's something I briefly mentioned when I met with you, but it would be my preference, and I would really appreciate if we could have very consistent audit reports so that every single report is read exactly the same. The one that I like a lot, and I know I mentioned it during our last FOAC meeting, was the one you did for the planning and inspections one. This is what I like, and maybe we can discuss this, offline or, some other time. But you have your findings, and we can get into findings versus observations, because I know you have two different words for that. And then you have a recommendation. Sometimes you write conclusion, right?
The conclusion's at
Yes.
the end of the report, ma'am.
Well, like, for example, in this one, you didn't write conclusion. So that's what I'm getting to. Sometimes it says findings, sometimes it says observation, sometimes it says recommendation, sometimes it says conclusion. And then sometimes, and for example, on this one specifically, the one that we're looking at for public health, it does not have the management response listed on it, like this one does. And so I'm hoping that we can get a consistent way of reporting, every single audit. That's what I would like, even if it's not applicable or you want to put something in writing, but just that we have, these titles that are consistent in every single report that you give us. That would be my preference, just because I think it would look cleaner and it would be easier to read, and we would know what to expect every single time versus wondering why one has something and then the next one does not. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. To me, it sounds like you really like our audit report format. So I
Yes.
think that's where we'll be going from
Yes.
this moment forward.
So I just want to go on record to say that would be my preference, and if we could do that going forward, being very specific on how you're concluding these reports and making them consistent more than anything, I would really appreciate that.
Sure.
Representative Chavez, I think something that we could add to what we were saying earlier is to the key or the legend on the P and the A. I think we could also look at the actual template on
Yes.
what the P template is, what the A template is, so we could have them side by side and then compare and see what consistency we could have on the
Yeah.
template for the audits,
I think
depending on
that's
the
a great
reports or
idea.
projects. Okay.
And that way, every single report reads the same.
And I'll work with you on that. I want to get to Representative Nino.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes, go ahead.
One thing, Representative Chavez, there was responses submitted to the Department of Public Health. If you look on the hard copy, the actual report in the backup, you will see in the back, at the very end, it has the management responses. It was in a memo form. So you're right, it is a little bit different than on the audit format. So I've already looked at our audit plan, what's left for the year. Looks like the vast majority of what we have left for this year audit plan are mostly all A's, a bunch of A's. So you're gonna, you're gonna get what you're asking for.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Representative Nino.
Thank you, Chairman. No, pretty much you all covered what I was going to ask in regard to the P. I know that this is discussion on a P instead of a A, the project, and if we could just clarify that would be great. So
Sure.
thank you for.
I'll have a
teaching on that.
presentation at the next meeting on giving you a little better definition of what an audit is and what an advisory service would be, which
And then
we're
I-
allowed to do under the professional standards.
And I think that'll also help us to give you the feedback.
Sure.
On-
Yeah,
on that.
I think the more information we share, the better we're all gonna be.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Is there a motion to accept the results of this audit? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. We're gonna move over to item number 6, discussion and action on the results of the Sun Metro Money Room Internal Control Review, P 2024-01. Mr. Calderon?
Okay, here we go again. This engagement was completed on January 9th, 2025, per the hard report that you will see in your backup. The objectives here was to review internal controls to ascertain if procedures currently being utilized are operating as intended, determine if cash handling procedures are consistent with policies, determine if the money room is operating again in a control conscious environment, and the review should include sufficient tests to ascertain whether internal controls are adequate. Okay, same, here it is again. The scope, the time frame on this one was for fiscal years. There were multiple fiscal years, 2023 and 2024 on this one. Okay, observation number 1. The accounting manual being used right now by Sun Metro is, hold on, let me go on page here. Requires that personnel be using pocketless uniforms. Okay, and there's also that there's no, this is in the policy, okay, not actual practice. The policy that has no documented procedures for when the fare box revenue does not balance with the amount counted and deposited, okay? That's regarding the policy. So our recommendation here, and you'll see that on slide 5. Come on, 5. I know, there's 5. Okay, is that Sun Metro provide, of course, pocketless uniforms to the personnel as required. And then document when fare box revenue does not balance with the amount counted and deposited by staff. Okay. And then we do have responses on this, Representative Chavez. They're just at the end. Again, it's a different format, but you'll see those shortly. And then we had observation 2, and here's where we actually did some counts. And when we looked at the ticket vending machines, and here we had 21 out of 27 ticket vending machines revenue amounts did not balance with the overall what was shown on their collection sheets. And the shortages, it was actually a shortage of about $2,513.80. And we determined that the shortages were due to some clerical and mostly mechanical errors with their equipment. Okay, these are the ticket vending machines, not the ones in the bus. Okay, these are the ones you'll find at the bus stops where they sell tickets. Okay, to let everybody know, right, Sun Metro has begun the process to install new ticket vending machines. They're going to a new system, which I strongly believe that's going to help. Let me get going. There you go. Sorry about that. And then we had 3 out of 27 deposits of the ticket vending machine revenue were not deposited with 1 business day. That's the policy. You have to deposit it with 1 business day. And then number 3, we had 3 out of 20 fare box deposits had $40 of quarters removed to replenish the fare box. And I think there's a typo there. I just saw it. It's really 3 out of 27. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. And then the daily fare box collected did not match with the revenues listed under summary reports. Okay, that one is the fare box. Okay, so then that balancing, it's my opinion, is a result of timing. because usually the cutoff time to count the money, or they probe the buses, the fare box, it's midnight. So if the bus is late, it's not going to balance because you missed the cutoff date. So that's what's pushing that number there. Okay, our recommendations on this one, slide 7, is to deposit the ticket vending machine revenues with 1 business day, have a change fund dedicated to replenish the ticket vending machines, and avoid taking money out of the daily collections. Okay, so, and then number 3, accurately reconcile fare box revenue with the daily summary report. And I strongly believe that their new system is going to help them with that. I've looked at that. So our conclusion on this, Sun Metro Money Room is operating in a control-conscious environment. Sun Metro has proper segregation of duties with their cash operation. Sun Metros should be providing pocketless uniforms to their money room staff, and the accounting manual should document procedures in the event when the fare box daily revenue reports do not reconcile with the amounts deposited. Okay, then there's a little bit more here. Revenue should be deposited within 1 business day. A change fund should be created, and the fare box revenue should be accurately reconciled. Okay? Here are the management responses received from Sun Metro, and they are currently updating their manual, their accounting manual on the use of uniforms, so that's coming in. They're in the process of developing new standard operating procedures in the handling of variances in the collections. And then that's on the first one. On the second one, on second observation, Sun Metro will continue to investigate ticket vending machine shortages. And they're actually getting some help from the Office of the Comptroller. And so Sun Metro is currently working on improving their ticket vending machine procedures. Okay, and then there's some more responses. I just shortened it up to make it easier for everybody to understand on there, but it's a big operation. I can just tell you, it's a big operation out at Sun Metro with their fare collections.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Any discussion from the FOAC members? Ms. Mack?
I hear somebody behind me. Oh.
Okay, Ms. Chavez?
Thank you. Mr. Calderon?
Yes, ma'am.
So your audit was for fiscal years 2023 and 2024?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We reviewed 2 fiscal years.
And the shortage was for 2 years, $2,513.80?
During our review period, ma'am, that we, let me go back to that slide. Yes, ma'am. During the review period, that we reviewed 27 deposits.
But that was the total dollar amount in shortages for
Yes,
those
ma'am,
2
on the
fiscal
sample
years?
that was selected,
I mean,
yes,
which
ma'am.
really is very minimal.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm assuming Sun Metro is going to speak?
If
Yes.
you're more than welcome.
I just want to provide just a couple of brief comments about the
Thank you.
status of the improvements
That's
we've
great.
made.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Well, Sasha Donosky from Sun Metro. I just want to add for the pocketless uniforms, we are providing T-shirts, polo shirts for cashiers, so they have that. The issue was with the pants, so we are allowing them to wear pocketless pants, or if they wear pockets, they should be suit. So and we are changing the accounting manual, so it's already changed though, so it's there. And for the TVMs, mostly is mechanical error. So when the armored truck goes to the TVM, sometimes they will not push the cash box to the end. So the TVM continues to count the money, but they already removed the box. So then we'll alert them, and they need to go back and reinsert the TVM in the box in the TVM. That's it.
Any other discussion? Okay, is there a motion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, this passes unanimously. Okay. Let's move to item number 7. Discussion and action on the results of the Division of Military Affairs Travel and Accounts Payable Audit Report A 2024-02. Mr. Calderon.
Okay. This is actually an audit, Representative Chavez. This is your favorite format. So you can see that in the report, but here's our objectives. Now, this one we had 2 different set of objectives, okay? We had the objectives regarding travel, and then we had the objectives regarding accounts payable, them paying their bills. So these are the ones for travel. Okay, we had 4 of them. Determine if travel requests were properly approved and reconciled. Okay, before and after travel. Determine if travel-related transactions served a municipal purpose. Verify that documentation support travel expenditures. And document areas for inefficiencies exist and internal controls are effective. Okay. These are the objectives on the accounts payable side of this engagement. They were to determine if transactions are processed in accordance with policy. Verify that documentation supports the transaction. 3, determine if transactions were reviewed and approved. Determine if transactions served a municipal purpose, again. And document areas for inefficiencies exist and internal controls are effective. Okay, the scope, again, the time frame audited was fiscal years 2023 to 2020 and 2024. So that was a 2-year review. This one we did have a couple of findings. The first finding we had were 10 out of 10 vouchers had invoices with no evidence of mathematical review. Okay. A little bit of background on this. When this audit was done, that was the requirement. The requirement insisted that the departments review the invoices that they were receiving and make sure they were mathematically accurate, not only with the dollars, but with the amounts they were buying. Like if they were buying 20 widgets at $20, it should be that. That requirement in the newest version of this policy has gone away. So it was effective. It was required when the audit was done, but it's not required anymore. So I wanted to clarify that. And then we had 4 out of 10 vouchers that we reviewed were not paid within the 30 calendar day requirement. Okay. Our recommendation for this one was that the Division of Veteran and Military Affairs should make notations on the invoices were reviewed, but again, that's no longer required, and of course, pay their invoices within the 30-day requirement. Finding 2 involved travel, and in this one, we had 3 out of 8 travel request forms were not reconciled within 5 days. This one has also had a change since we issued the report. Now the requirement is 10 days. Before they had 5 days. Now they've been given 10 days. So that will change when we do the follow-up, when we check the newer set of vouchers or travel request forms, I'm sorry. And then 2, we had 1 out of 8 vouchers were missing the after travel approval. That's the approval you have to have when you get back. And then 1 of the travel request forms included a $36 overpayment of the per diem expenses to an employee. Our recommendations on this one was the Department of Veteran and Military Affairs should reconcile their travel expenses within 5 days, which is now it's 10 days, and obtain the after travel approvals and ensure the military program administrator reimburses the city for the $36 overpayment, which I can report it was done. So he already paid that. Conclusion on the whoops, what am I doing here? Here we go. I pushed the wrong button. The Division of Military Affairs met the objectives in the following areas: properly obtaining approval for expenditures before travel. Expenditures did meet a municipal purpose, and they were not incurring any unallowable purchases. Okay. Continue with our conclusion. The Department of Veteran Affairs did not meet the audit objectives in the following areas. That was paying their invoices within 30 days, vendor invoice contained no evidence of review, but that has gone away. And reconciling expenses within 5 days, which is now 10 days. And obtaining the required after-travel approval and ensure meals provided by event are deducted from their per diem payment, from the traveler's per diem payment. So here's the management's response, and I'll just paraphrase. They're going to do some training. Of course, the verification of the invoices requirement has gone away. They're going to work on paying their invoices within 30 days. Next page, they've hired some additional help to help them, and we're already in the middle of doing the follow-up on this one. We're already seeing the improvement, just to let the FOAC know, and get their approvals. And of course, the $36 overpayment has been reimbursed to the city, and that's it on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon.
You're welcome.
Is there any discussion from the FOAC? Ms. Mack?
No, sir, I think we talked about the couple of items with Mr. Calderon. I think the team did a really great job with being very detailed in the management report that was published.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mack.
Thank
Any
you.
other? Mr. Albright, did you have something to say?
No, I think Ms. Mack said it right. So for the record, Paul Albright from Military Veteran Affairs. So they did a really professional audit on us, and I really appreciate that. You know, that feedback's a gift. We had a good learning curve on there. We saw the mistakes that we made. We definitely are implementing those areas to make those improvements. And we definitely want to be the great stewards of the city taxpayers' money. So we thank you for that audit. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, this passes unanimously. We could move to item number 8, discussion and action on the results of the Sun Bowl game audit report A 2024-04. Mr. Calderon.
Okay, I'm waiting for IT. Here it comes. Okay, this is the audit of the Sun Bowl report. This audit was completed June 26th of 2024. And this was, like we're going to say, a full-blown audit. This was an A, okay? Our objectives on this audit was to determine if the Sun Bowl Association is complying with their agreement, and that's in using the motor vehicle rental tax only for qualified expenses, to use the money to promote, and they were supposed to provide, they're required to provide quarterly expenditure reports along with an annual financial report to the city, and securing personnel at their own expense, not at the city's expense, and providing proper insurance coverage. Okay. Scope of this one, the agreement between the city and the Sun Bowl Association is dated August 11th, 1998. That makes it over 25 years old. This is a pretty old agreement. Okay, you'll see my recommendation on that shortly. Okay, the city is providing, on finding one, the city is providing the Sun Bowl reports detailing the amount of motor vehicle tax collected. The only issue we saw here, it's a lot of screenshots of our computer system that they were getting, so the Sun Bowl was having a hard time reading them, so we're just asking that they need to provide the reports in an easy-to-read format instead of our screenshots. Second, the Sun Bowl is submitting one payment request versus quarterly as required by the agreement. Okay, they're required to send 4, but they're only doing one, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So my recommendations on this one, the city should provide the easy-to-read quarterly reports to the Sun Bowl Association. I think that could easily be done. And then the Sun Bowl Association should request an update of the agreement to reflect current practices. This thing is 25 years old, and the current practices that are taking place on the Sun Bowl game and requests for payments there's a huge difference of what's required in the agreement and what's actually happening. So I think it's ripe for a review. So that's my recommendation. And then on finding 2, we reviewed the motor vehicle tax account, and we wanted to get an understanding of what monies are sitting there that are available for the Sun to use for the annual game. And as of April 30th, 2024, the motor vehicle tax account had a balance of $4.2 million. And I actually took it all the way down to the pennies, but I'll just round off. Okay, but also as of December 31st, 2023, a certificate of deposit in the amount of $4.5 million is held at a local bank in the name of the Sunbelt Association. So that makes it a total of about $8.7 million of taxpayer money available to the Sunbelt. So we got 4.2 here and then 4.5 sitting at a local bank. Okay. My recommendation on this is the city and the Sunbelt Association review quarterly the motor vehicle tax balances. That way they have everybody's in agreement on what's in those accounts. Our conclusion on this audit is the Sunbelt uses the motor vehicle rental tax to support the Sunbelt game. That's the only thing they're using it for. The Sunbelt is providing annual financial statements to the city. The Sunbelt actually reports reimbursement payments received from the city on their financial statements, and the Sunbelt does maintain proper insurance coverages. We did see those. And the current agreement is definitely in need of an update because of its age. Here's the responses from the Sunbelt, and the Sunbelt responses are that the Sunbelt is aware of the use of the motor vehicle tax and how to use it. Here's their statement. And the Sunbelt is aware of requesting funds once a year, so they know that, and that the dollars that they do withdraw from the motor vehicle tax account is used specifically to pay the teams that play in the annual game. Okay, without any questions, and I know Mr. Oliva is here from the Sunbelt Association. He said he would be available for any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Any discussion from the FOAC on this?
I don't know how to pose my question at the moment.
Okay, I could come back to you. I do have some thoughts on this. You know, I appreciate you presenting this, and I know that we discussed it in the November FOAC meeting with the past FOAC. And part of the reason that we're seeing this again today is because this has not been taken to council, right? Just like the prior item on military affairs and then the next item on the vehicle allowance program. But as I continue to look through this audit and think about how we got to this audit, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with this audit. And, you know, I think with you being the chief internal auditor of the city and then also doing the timer at the Sunbelt every year for $75 a year, it's not a lot of money, but I think for me that's a conflict of interest. Even if you didn't do that, and even if you did that and they paid you nothing, you're still involved in the association, and then you're coming in and auditing it. I feel like that's a big conflict of interest, and also with auditing standards, independence is really important on this, right? Yes, so I'm just putting this out there just to tell the members of the FOAC that I do want to make a motion to deny this Sunbelt Game Audit Report A 2024-04 and not move forward with it. And if there's any other discussion, I'm open to hearing that.
May I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Rep. Acevedo, Chairman Acevedo, you are 100% totally correct. When this assignment was presented to me by the previous mayor and the previous FOAC chair, I objected to taking the assignment. I told them about my conflict of interest, and I was instructed to move forward.
I understand that, but then I also think that you have that independence, right? And that independence is absolutely critical to any auditor, not just here at the City of El Paso, any organization. And I think that you should have done more in terms of pushing back on using your center and saying, I'm not going to do it, you know? I appreciate that you came forward and said that to them, but I think moving forward and proceeding this, I feel, is not in line with the auditing standards that you follow, right? And the independence and stuff like that. So that's some of the reason. I know there might be other thoughts here. So, if Rep Chavez, if you have something to say.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Calderon, did you ask for legal advice from our legal department or anywhere else in terms of this conflict?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I don't know if our city attorney wants to weigh in, if that would have been appropriate, or not.
So under the ethics ordinance, ma'am, any member of the organization and the city manager can request an ethics opinion from the city attorney anytime that they believe that they have an ethics conflict, and that's always available to them.
Thank you. So just going forward, that's great that we all know, all of us, right, know that we
Yes,
have
ma'am.
that option. And I think that, what Chairman Acevedo just recommended is also to protect you, right? And your
Yes, ma'am.
integrity, because I think integrity is something that we value, and we want to make sure that whenever people look at the work that we do here at the city, that they respect us for the work we do, and integrity is a piece of that. So if we're compromising that in any way by accepting this audit, I would be against that for your own protection as well.
I am fine with your decision, ma'am.
Thank you. So I want to second Chairman Acevedo's motion, and I don't know if we want to give a chance to the Sumble to speak to this at all before we vote.
Thank you for the second. So we have a motion and a second, but Mr. Olivas, if you wanted to say something, the floor is open to you.
Thank you, Committee. Bernie Olivas, Executive Director of the Sumble Association. We would welcome another audit if that's what it's going to take. Again, this contract hadn't been done since 1998, and I know there's several uses for that rental car tax that we can use it for, but to avoid any conflict or any question as to what that money is being used for, we use it for one thing, and that is for team payments. And then we supply the contracts as to how much money we owe the teams, and we don't use it for any of the promotion and all the other things that money can be used for. So again, that is why we only request the money once a year when it's time to pay team payments, as opposed to quarterly, because we make payments once a year, and that is all we use that money for. But if another audit is required or requested, we'll comply with whatever you all need.
Thank you, Mr. Olivas. Just a quick question, just based on what you're saying. Since we've had this contract in place since 1998, have you had any audit that you've initiated on your end?
Oh, yeah. No, we have an annual audit that we have to submit to the NCAA.
Okay.
So we have to submit an annual audit that's due August 31st, and we have our own external auditor who comes in and audits our books once a year, and that is required by the NCAA that we supply our audited financials to them to make sure that we're in compliance as well. And I know this has been a long time since this way before I became executive director, because I didn't become executive until 2001, and this contract started in 1998, so that's before my time. But even when I took over, we know very well how important that rental car tax is to this game, so we are not going to do anything to compromise that, and we use it for only one thing, and that's for team payments and nothing else.
And do you think your yearly audit that you're doing on your end can have some of the scope that was in this audit, deal with the rental car, what was in this scope? Can it be answered in your yearly audits that you
I'm
have?
pretty sure it can, yes, and
Okay.
we'd be lucky to provide all those audits to you. And I think we provided some of them all the way back to 2002 to Mr. Calderon.
Okay.
So we have done that. We did give all our audited financials to Mr. Calderon when he started the audit.
Just as a suggestion, if you're able to broaden the scope for the next year audit whenever you're going to do that, I think I would appreciate it. If this passes today, I think having that information from you is also just as valuable because you have an external auditor coming out and doing
Absolutely.
it. Okay.
Whatever y'all require, we'll be compliant with what you all require. Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much, and thank you for y'all's support. Thank you.
Okay. No more discussion on this. There's a motion and a second. All in favor of denying the results of the Stumble Game audit? Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, this passes unanimously, so we will not move forward with this. And this means that it dies here and will not be going to council for final approval. Ms. Chavez.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to thank Mr. Calderon for his hard work, because I know that although this was denied, I know you poured hours and hours of work into this, you and your team, so thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. It was a tough engagement.
Yes, I know, but thank
It was a
you.
very hard engagement for us.
I'm looking at the clock, so I'm going to skip over to number 10, just because
Okay.
I do want to get this finalized before we finish, and then we'll see where we're at with number 9. But number 10 is discussion and action on proposed amendments to the FY 2024-2025 audit plan to be sent to City Council for final approval at the April 1st, 2025 regular council meeting. Mr. Calderon.
As Representative Acevedo just said, we need to take the annual audit plan to the City Council to be approved. That's required by our charters to do, And I've put some backup information in your packets for, I actually put the audit plan with some additional revisions that Rep. Acevedo asked for. But we have 3 engagements we would like to delete from the annual audit plan, because the previous FOAC did approve the audit plan, but we never got it to City Council. Now we want to, again, approve it again, but this time with some deletions. I have 3 engagements I want to delete before we send it to the City Council as a whole for approval. And the first one is the executive vacation request and sick leave project. I want to cancel that one. That one I want to cancel it because I don't have enough data to do a good job on this thing. I have a data limitation, a scope limitation on this one. So I want to delete that one. I also would like to delete number 2, which is on the El Paso Zoo memberships, which is memberships, fundraising activities, attendance, ticket sales, audit. We had that in the 3rd quarter. I want to delete that one. The reason I want to delete it is because there's pending legal proceeding on this. So I just wanted to. I can reschedule it next year when we want. If the committee wants me, I can do it next year. And then the last thing I want to delete would be the P-card review of City Council and the City Manager's office in the 3rd quarter. I had talked to Rep. Acevedo, and he felt I have a conflict of interest because I would be auditing my bosses on this one. So I said, okay, well, we'll take it to the committee. So these are the 3 deletions I'm proposing.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. I just wanted to also clarify on the backup for this item. What I had suggested was just add a little bit more clarity on the information the way it's presented in the table that is included in the backup. So I know Mr. Calderon had said that I had suggested some edits. Those were the edits. It wasn't to change the audit plan drastically. It was just provide
add additional information. I should have made that clear.
Yeah, additional information for more clarity. And then I also wanted to explain a little bit more on the P cards. Mr. Calderon has been under council now as the voters approved this almost 2 years ago. And so these audits were being conducted for 16 years, I believe. 18 years. 18 years. And prior to that, Mr. Calderon reported to the city manager.
I had a dual reporting line.
Yeah, and I think that a dual reporting line, I'm sorry. I think that we need to kind of figure this out with Weaver as well. I think we can continue doing the P-card audits. I think that they're important, but maybe it's not every year. Maybe it's every 2-3 years. I've already kind of discussed this with Weaver, and Weaver should be giving us recommendations by May. Another thing that we started at the beginning of this fiscal year, I believe, was posting all of the P-card transactions that council has on our agendas for city council. So those are available to us and the public. And then so as we kind of determine what Weaver says we could get on a better schedule for the P-cards and the other executive level vacation and pay and stuff like that. So those were my thoughts behind it. I don't know if anybody else has some other thoughts on this. Representative Maldonado Rocha.
Thank you. So I know that I spoke with you, Mr. Calderon, about this, and I actually spoke with Chairman Acevedo just to get some clarification as to what the request was. After that discussion, I am in agreement with Chairman Acevedo, simply because there is that ultimately, I think the goal of the FOAC in this group is to be as transparent as we possibly can, while trying to also have the utmost integrity. And I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just saying we just want to make sure that there are no issues when it comes to the public and sharing this information, that there would be any question as to the integrity of it. So I know that we will operate in that integrity moment, I guess, and we know you already do. And so that's really what we're trying to accomplish, is to just show that there is that integrity expectation among the body of FOAC. So thank you.
Anything else from? And so this is also the next thing that I want to propose is, correct me if I'm wrong, but by doing these deletions, this is up to 1,000 hours that we would be
It's gonna
deleting.
1,000 hours, sir, that we would
1,000.
have available for additional audit work.
Okay. And so I want to have a process of replacing those hours, because I think it's important that we are deleting this, but we still have 1,000 hours to work on, and there might be other things. So what I'm going to ask is the FOAC members, including Ms. Mack, because she's a member of the FOAC, to give suggestions to Mr. Calderon by next Thursday, which is March 20th. That's a week. If there's something that you're seeing that you could say, hey, I'm seeing this in this department, Mr. Calderon, can you look at this? And then at the next FOAC meeting, give us that risk assessment. But what I mean by a risk assessment, this is high risk, this is medium risk, this is low risk.
Yes,
And then at that point in the next FOAC meeting, what we'll do is, and also give us the hours. And at that FOAC meeting, we'll determine as a FOAC which one moves forward to replace these 1,000 hours on the audit plan. It might be one or two of them, right? Because a full audit can be half of the 1,000 hours, right? But I think we need to have that discussion. But I want you to measure the risk on each one, so we're not just telling you what to do, because it might be something that I, as a FOAC member, want to do. I want this to be a better process. And so I do have a motion for this item, and I'm going to read it. It's a little long, but I move to approve the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2024-2025 audit plan, send it to City Council for final approval at the April 1st, 2025 regular City Council meeting, and direct the Chief Internal Auditor to collect feedback from the FOAC on potential audits to replace the freed up hours in the audit plan by March 20th, 2025, and conduct a risk assessment from this feedback to be presented at the FOAC meeting for review and action on April 10th, 2025. And so that captures everything I just said prior to reading the motion.
Can I
Go ahead.
make a statement? When I do the annual risk assessment for the entire city, when we're trying to select audits to be done, I have a few items on there that were scored high but didn't make the final cut because we ran out of hours. That's what happened. Can I put that?
Absolutely. You're a member of the FOAC too.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. You include that, and you include the hours, the risk level, and the description of what it is, and then we'll have that discussion at the next FOAC meeting. Absolutely.
Okay,
Okay.
I got a couple.
Okay. So I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Neiman?
Just housekeeping, did you already move item number 9 to the next council meeting? Did you already vote on that?
No, I just skipped
Okay.
forward
Oh,
to number
sorry,
10.
sorry.
Yes.
Watching the time.
Yeah, I think so. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Hearing none, this passes unanimously. FOAC, I know we wanted to keep it to 90 minutes, but I think we have one item. Would you want to proceed with this item? Or should we postpone it? Yes?
We can proceed.
Okay, perfect. So we'll go back to item number 9, discussion and action on the results of the vehicle allowance program analysis.
Okay.
Mr. Calderon?
Yes, this is a very interesting engagement, per se. It actually did not qualify as an A or a P. It just ended up being an analysis we were doing. So what happened when I had the data that we came up with, we said, okay, now I went over it with the FOAC chair at the time, and he says, well, prepare a report to present to the FOAC committee. So I did. Told I was told to do what I was instructed to do. So here's the results of that review. And it's mostly statistical information. We did get responses, Rep. Chavez, from HR. You can find them at the back of the document that I attached as backup. But here's the data that we found. The objective was to perform an analysis of city employees and elected municipal court judges receiving a vehicle allowance payment. That's what our one and only objective on this thing. We looked at fiscal year, 2023-2024. So that's the year we looked at. Here's what we found, an observation. Hold on. Here we go. The fiscal year 2024 budget resolution did not address the vehicle allowance payments for municipal court judges because that's where it was required to be. And for some reason, it slipped through the cracks and didn't get on there. And there are 6 municipal court judges, so that's a statistic. So let's see, then 2. The analysis identified 96 employees receiving a total of $367,000 annually in a vehicle allowance, okay? Number 3, the analysis also identified 61 out of the 96 employees were paid in accordance with the policy. The remaining 35 employees that were not covered by the policy were the 6 municipal court judges. We had 19 fire department personnel. We had 3 city employees receiving payments per their employment agreement, and 7 city employees receiving payment in excess of the maximum amount defined in the policy. Okay. We identified 33 different departments with employees receiving vehicle allowance. Okay, so our conclusion on the analysis, our analysis indicated noncompliance with the current policy in the areas just discussed of people receiving payments. And because of this analysis I did back then, reviewing it with the FOAC committee chair, he had asked me to schedule another audit or like part 2 to this in this year's audit plan, which we did, which we're in the process of finishing right now. Okay, and that will provide the FOAC with a little bit more detail on the analysis. We did get management's responses from the HR department. Make sure I got the right slide. Here we go. They do admit there was an error in not including the judges in the annual budget resolution, but there is an update coming. They are currently working on updating the current policy to include all those gaps that we've identified. Okay. This part of the response describes the classification of employees getting the allowances. I didn't do that I do have it in the audit report, but I didn't include it in this briefing, but we have that information. But here they are. There's some attorneys, some executives, fire department personnel, and of course the judges. And then I'm reading my note here. The HR department also responded that they recognize that the 35 out of the 36 employees not included in their current policy, and they gave a reason in detail on why they were not included. So you can see that in their responses. And they were all well written, I think, and well supported, the responses, but they were just not included. So you can see those in your slides. I'm just trying to get to the Q&A. And it concludes that briefing.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Calderon.
welcome.
Are there any discussions or questions? Okay. Miss, were you gonna say, I was like,
Yeah, I
are
was
you
gonna say
reaching?
we've already adopted the new policy. You want to add anything more detailed, Mary?
Good afternoon, Mary Wiggins, Chief Human Resources Officer. We did update the policy. It actually is much nicer now. I think that we were able to add, we bullet pointed, so it's a whole lot more clear. We took the judges, we added them, so we're not referencing them in the budget resolution. The fire personnel, we talked about how there was a time in 2010 where their vehicles weren't working, and rather than buy a new supply of vehicles, it was opted to go to add the fire department personnel. And the other thing was just that there is a comment, there is a line item in the policy that just says additional employees authorized and approved to participate in the program will be paid the amount designated by the city manager or his designee. So they had, he had the authority to be able to add different items, but I think now we have them all outlined here much better.
Just a quick question. I remember when we discussed this in November, I thought we were going to have a presentation to council about this. Is that still the thought? Because I know that there was the discussion on adding the city representatives to this, and we haven't really heard much since. So I just wanted to get an update on that.
I can look at adding something to council, or no.
I haven't received direction to add city council to the policy or to move forward. I may have missed some action that happened before
Yeah.
I was in place, but.
I was under the impression that that was part of the review because they were going to look at adding the city council representatives to the vehicle allowance. So I had been waiting on that for a while, and I thought we were going to get that back in December, but it hadn't happened, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
I don't know who requested it. I just know that that was a discussion we had at some point.
I think from my recollection, it never came back to the council after some original conversations about the vehicle allowance program, and then there was never any direction on adding the council or having a conversation. That would need to be directed from the council. There was never any official action to tell us to add the council members.
Okay, so maybe it was just a discussion that was happening throughout, but then no
Correct.
actual action
No.
on that direction. Okay. Okay.
And I know that you had talked to me, that you would like it, but I don't know that we ever got, like she said, direction.
Okay. I appreciate it. Any other discussion on this? Okay, is there a motion on this? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, this passes unanimously. So, Mr. Calderon, we'll have these items for the ones that are moving forward in terms of, it's mainly the audits, and then the audit plan, the amended audit plan for the April 1st council meeting. So there's still time, plenty of time to put it on there for the final approval. And they'll basically look like the items that are on here. And we could work with legal, with Ms. Neiman, to just adjust any of the language as needed, as it's moving from the full act to the council.
Okay, I believe me and you are scheduled to meet on the 19th.
Yes.
And hopefully we can come up with language then.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very similar language, but then it might also be good for you to talk to Carla about that. Okay. All right. So we kind of did it today. We did 93 minutes. Sorry, we went 3. So I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. So motion passes unanimously, and we are adjourned at 3:33. Thank you so much.